and welcome to Gymnastics with Joy, the podcast that flips your perspective on gymnastics, where every athlete has a story and we're here to tell it. I'm Joy, and today I am joined by an Olympic silver medalist, a world champion, an NCAA champion. I can't believe she's here, but she is. Please welcome the one and only Sam Peszek.
Oh,
Welcome!
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I just have to tell you, I love the name of your podcast. Gymnastics is
Thank
so
you.
great.
Thank you. Listen, we all love Stick It. We all love that line. And, I'm all about bringing positivity and kindness into the sport of gymnastics.
Yeah,
So I wanted to kind of make a little pun on it. So I appreciate that.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. So I want to start from the beginning because I always like to I always like to start there. I like to know everyone's gymnastics origin story. So when you look back, what first drew you into gymnastics and what made you realize pretty early on that it wasn't just a hobby for you, that it could take you far?
Man, my parents were both college athletes. My mom was a gymnast and my dad was a hockey player and a wrestler. And the story goes that they were arguing on which sports they were going to put us in.
Uh-huh.
And my mom was like, "Well, why don't we do gymnastics? Because it's the youngest. It's the youngest you can be in any sport."
Yeah.
And then they can pick from there. And so once I started at two, as most gymnastic stories goes, it's so fun. And I didn't really want to do any other sports. I did try soccer, but there came a point, I think I was 6 or 7, when I had to choose whether I wanted to continue to do gymnastics or soccer. And gymnastics was like 4 sports in one
Yeah.
in my little kid brain. So why would I pick one sport when I can have 4 sports in one? Little
Yeah.
did I know later, it's actually what makes the sport really challenging to have 4 different sets of qualifications
Yeah.
and routines. But here we are. Yeah. And I loved it from there on out. I have this like vivid memory, which is probably my first gymnastics memory. My mom was working the 96 Olympic Games. And so my dad was watching me, and we were watching the Olympics on TV. And I just was doing all of their floor routines in our floor. And in my head, I felt really good at gymnastics. Like I remember that feeling being like, I could do this one day.
Yeah.
And so I remember running to the garage and telling my dad, like, I'm going to go to the Olympics one day.
Yeah.
And my parents have always been so supportive. And I just remember him saying, like, yeah, you can do anything you set your mind to. And so that was the consistent message from my parents. And I was like the annoying kid about it. I would go to the grocery store and randomly tell the checkout lady, like, I'm going to go to the Olympics one day. And my parents would have to like apologize for me because I was so overly confident as a little kid who actually wasn't very good at gymnastics at the time. But the message from them was consistent in terms of that's totally great. We support you. You can do anything you set your mind to. So if that's what you want to do, you got to work hard, and that'll maybe happen for you later.
And then you did go to the Olympics, so they shouldn't have even had to apologize because you
Yeah.
you did what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember another weird memory is like in third grade, you have to write down what you want to do when you grow up.
Mhm.
And I wrote down I wanted to go to the Olympics. And my teacher like read it in front of the class, and she was like, that's a great goal, but like, what's another thing that you want to do just in case that doesn't happen? And I just remember her saying that and thinking, that was a weird thing to say because
Yeah.
in my head, I was definitely going to go to the Olympics. And
Mhm.
I think at that time, I was still so young, I didn't realize how difficult and how many
Yeah.
steps and how far-fetched it was because in my brain, my parents have always told me that I could do anything I set my mind to.
Yeah.
And, you're at the age where your parents are always right. So, of course, I was going to go to the Olympics one day.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. I mean, I love that you knew from the get-go that's what you wanted to do. And it's so cool how like kids are so smart and they know what they want. And to see that like what you wanted came to fruition is just that's so incredible. It like gives me chills.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
but you were part of the US national team pipeline for years as a kid and a teenager. What do you remember most about growing up in that system? What did it teach you? What things like that?
Oh man, the first thing that comes to mind is like it was so hard. It
Yeah.
was it was really tough, and that's what everyone did. So I think you didn't realize it at the time. I
Yeah.
definitely knew it was harder than my normal practice and it was a lot more pressure. But I didn't come from like a cookie cutter elite gymnastics gym. And I remember my first time at the National Team Training Center, I didn't even know that we had to memorize a warm up. And
Mm,
so I had this panic that everyone was, doing the same amount of arm circles. And I didn't know what the warm up was. And
yeah.
so in between each session, one of the girls was trying to teach me and I was trying to memorize the warm up.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Wow.
even from the warm up, like everything was stressful.
Yeah.
I think it probably made competing less stressful because of how intense the national team training camps were. And
Hmm.
there were so many great parts about it. The knowledgeable staff that would help out. The
Yeah.
the number one thing for me was like getting to see friends that lived across the country,
Yeah.
and like missing some school for this, like and
Mhm.
having like a sleepover with your friends. Although the funny, ironic part is that you're so tired. It's not like you're like staying up too late because you're just so tired.
Yeah.
But it felt cool being like 13 years old and like getting to have a slumber party with your best friends.
Yeah.
So those are like the good memories that I have from it. There's obviously, some moments looking back that probably shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But I'm really lucky that I had such a phenomenal individual coach
Hmm.
who did a good job of, I don't want to say protecting me, but making me follow my same plan even when I was there to make sure that my body still was healthy when we left and
Yeah.
that I, wasn't broken down too much mentally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so lucky to have him and also my parents to kind of come home too.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of gymnast were you naturally at a young age? And what was natural for you? What came naturally for you? And then what did you have to work harder on?
I was always the powerful kid, the trickster kid. I think that the flip side of that was I had a lot of fears.
Mhm.
So because I was such a quick twitched athlete, I was progressing pretty quickly, but then I would always have a really serious fear. And looking back, I think it's because I just didn't understand the skill well enough because of how fast my body was moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything powerful or strength based, I could pretty much catch on easily. But the flexibility, everything in terms of flexibility was tough for me.
Mhm.
I was a TOPS national team member, and I remember at TOPS national testing the shoulder flexibility, I got a zero,
Oh,
like dead zero. And they told me like you'll never make any team unless you improve
yeah.
your shoulder flexibility and your overall flexibility. And so it was something that I worked day in and day out on. And I think that you probably didn't even notice the amount of time and effort I spent towards my flexibility because it was
Yeah.
just something that I really had to work on.
Mhm.
So certain, I'd say like tricks and ways to kind of get around the flexibility was stuff that I picked up along the way, but that was always something that I had to spend some extra time with.
Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting to hear because like it's not something that I would have thought about, for you. But yeah, I
Oh,
love
that's
hearing it.
nice.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you weren't like, doing like eagle grips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I'm just saying like I never really it never really dawned on me. Um
Yeah.
and so you did your job very well working on
Thank you.
it. Yeah, and working around it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that you were able to adjust and do what worked for you.
Yeah.
Um, what do you remember? Well, you moved into senior elite in 2007, so
Mhm.
2007. What felt different immediately once you were competing as a senior rather than as a junior?
That's a good question. I mean, not much changed. I know I felt like I remember the media making it a big deal of like they're seniors now,
Yeah.
but the reality was, at training camps and stuff, we were with the seniors already. And, Sean, Ivana Hong, Bridget Sloan, all of the girls that were kind of are the same year moving to the senior level together, we were all doing it together. And so the girls that I was competing against pretty much at the junior level we're now seniors. And so it didn't feel that different. I would say the one thing that felt like a big deal, and I don't know how I was smart enough at the time to understand this, but because I didn't have as much senior international elite experience because we just turned seniors.
Yeah.
I knew that every international assignment carried a lot of weight in regards to making the Olympic team.
Yeah.
So I knew that once I made senior national team, since there was only a year and a half before the Olympics, that every single time I competed and I needed to make every team in order to have a shot to make the Olympic team. And so that was what changed for me is the amount of pressure every single meet had from there on out.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like you were such an intense competitor. Like you remind me a little bit of Chelsea Mimmel in the sense that like you knew that Sam was going to hit when she went up there. Like you just were that kind of, as you say on broadcast, icy competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because that's what you were.
Yeah.
You had ice in your veins. And so I think that that probably helped you when it came to all of those competitions that you knew would eventually lead up to the Olympics, you know?
Yeah. The first senior meet that I did was championships.
Hmm.
Like big one. I guess probably did classics before that, but championships was like kind of one of the big first meets that I did, and they were picking the world championship team from there. And I had the worst meet of my entire life. I fell 3 times. I don't ever even in developmental levels remember falling that many times, but I like very uncharacteristically fell 3 times and just I think I do like pressure, but that was the moment where I was like, I put too much pressure on this moment of like, I have to make this routine, otherwise I'm not making the Olympic team. And to a degree, it's helpful, but like in those moments, it probably wasn't the right thing to say. And so I actually, made all my routines the second day of competition, but it wasn't enough to put me on the team. So they actually made me an alternate, and Marta told me and my coach, like, she has to earn her spot from here on out. So every single day from the day that I became an alternate to the world championship team, I had to like earn my place back on the team.
Yeah,
And so every single, again, training and competition just had so much weight to it.
yeah.
Which I guess maybe helped me be that icy competitor, but also there was such a fine line between, teetering on too much pressure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then you ended up being a part of that world championship team and you vaulted and it was amazing. It was a wonderful vault. What being a part of that US world team in 2007, I mean, that had to be huge for you, especially dealing with the championship situation that you dealt with before that. What did that experience teach you about competing and for something bigger than yourself, like for a team?
Yeah, I mean, world championships, I had done a lot of international meets as a junior, and I'd been to a lot of countries competing for Team USA. And so I felt like I wasn't too nervous going in. It was just going to be another competition, but it is very different. The length of time you were away, the amount of competitions, like the amount of trainings in very sketchy gyms, like international food. Like I was at the stage where I was like barely eating salads. Like I put ketchup on salads because I didn't even like healthy food at that point. And so yeah, it was a long trip for my first time. And it was good experience. I'm so happy that we were able to do world championships because any other year we wouldn't have been age eligible to do world championships.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that we were because it gave us so much experience before the Olympic Games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that 2007 US team was historically important for American gymnastics. And did it feel historic in that moment or did it hit more afterward?
It's like tough because that team had so much like chemistry,
Yeah.
and we had so much heart, and there was so much youth on the team between me and Bridget Sloan and Ivana Hong and Sean,
Mhm.
and even Shayla was like just a year older than all of us. And so it
Mhm.
was a pretty like young team, I
Yeah.
would say, with that were inexperienced. And we just
Yeah.
had this mindset that we were going to win at all costs. Like it wasn't like, oh, I hope we do our best and I hope we win. It was like, we just need to win. Like we need to do our job, and we're definitely going to win. Like there was
Yeah.
not 1 ounce of doubt whether or not we were going to win or not.
Yeah.
And that might sound a little like I guess, cocky, and maybe we were naive to think that how difficult it is to really win internationally, especially on that stage. But that was the mindset going in of like there was no other option other than to win. And so
Yeah.
once we did, it was like this relief that we did it. But I think we didn't realize how cool it was going to be and how impactful and historic. Like, I guess thank God they didn't tell us that we were going
Yeah.
to make history if we won. I had no idea until after we did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we really didn't know how special that moment was and how special that team was until we got back.
Yeah. Yeah. And in 2008, you were right in the thick of one of the most competitive Olympic cycles and selection years the US has ever had. Like it was intense. The amount of talent that we had here in the US. What do you remember about the pressure of that season leading up to the Olympics?
Was so much pressure.
Yeah.
Like not just the competition, it was like every day at the gym, the pressure to not get hurt
Yeah.
every turn you took. And it was like you wanted it so badly and your coach wanted it so badly. And so we would walk in and it was like you the air was taken out of the room because of just the intensity of how perfect I wanted to be for every turn from warm up to complex to the routines that I did. Like I remember like falling in practice and like having this kind of like meltdown for no reason. It was just practice, but it was like every single turn felt like it was the Olympic Games for me. I wasn't a shoo-in. I felt like my chances were good if I continued on the trajectory, but my coach always said like the number one rule is you have to stay healthy. And so it was like this pressure of I was still a normal student. So I would go to high school and then go to practice. And it's like if I didn't get very much sleep or I had a stressful test, like I really had to make sure my head was screwed on straight
Yeah.
because one wrong turn with like the two double doubles I was doing, the Yurchenko doubles on vault, like the difficult skills I was doing, like I couldn't afford to not be dialed in every second that I did gymnastics. So it's like that is what I remember the stressful part of the year being, and not necessarily like the actual meets. Like the meets to me were actually the fun part, but
Yeah.
it was like the training and the intensity of every single time I did any gymnastics,
Yeah.
wanting to be so perfect.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a lot. I mean, that would be a lot of
Yeah.
pressure on anyone, much less a young athlete, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but you finished fourth at the 2008 Olympic trials, which
Mhm.
is amazing. And made that Olympic team. So
Mhm.
what do you remember about that moment that you found out you were officially going to Beijing?
Well, after I got fourth at championships or Olympic trials, I was very disappointed because they told us that if we did our job, they would name us to the team. And we kind of found out later that they pretty much had the team selected except one person. And so they didn't want to name the whole team and leave off one person. So they decided to not choose anyone, which again just added pressure because we had to compete one more time at the training center. And we didn't
Yeah,
get to be celebrated by our family and friends and there in person. So, I remember being really disappointed at that
yeah,
moment.
yeah,
Um, but then at the national team training center, when we had that meet, I made my routines. And so I felt like I made it and I did my job. But until she said my name, it was like, I couldn't breathe. And so
yeah,
right when she said my name, it was like, it was weird because it was just like 10 of us sitting there and there was no
yeah,
celebration, but it was like
yeah,
also like my dream came true, but you couldn't
yeah,
really cheer because the people next to you didn't make the team. It was like
yeah,
it was a really weird scenario that
yeah.
I
I
wish that they would have
forgot.
redone.
I
Yeah.
forgot that they didn't announce it at the trials. Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
so weird that they wouldn't
So weird.
have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very
That's
strange. I guess our parents were allowed to come. So they flew there. And so I do remember walking back in. And so like we walked back in and like I just told my parents like I made it. There wasn't like an official anything. And so
yeah,
but anyway, I just remember it being like a huge like exciting moment, but they kind of drilled it in our brains, understandably so, like, hey, listen, like this is so cool, but like the job's not done. The,
yeah,
the job's actually just beginning and we have
yeah,
to leave in a week or two. And the important part is what's about to come, not necessarily that you made the team. So I
yeah,
just remember like not really celebrating, but like being so stoked. But like you wanted to do such a good job. It was almost like more pressure. You wanted to do such a good job for your country that it's like you didn't want to celebrate too much right when it happened.
Yeah, yeah. That would be hard to kind of navigate the
Yeah.
happiness and the all of the feelings that would go with that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, finishing fourth at an Olympic trials is a huge accomplishment, and
Yeah.
then to like not get chosen like right then and there, like when you clearly like should have made the team right then and there, like that
Yeah.
that had to be tough. But I mean, at least your parents were able to be there, I guess. Like
Yeah.
that's a wild scenario, honestly.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Well,
I guess the important part for me, I guess, was that I made the team. So
yeah,
it was like one of those moments like, who cares at that point? I'm just
yeah.
like so grateful and happy to be on this team that, but looking back, I'm like, man, that could have been better.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely could have been better. Absolutely, yeah. And your Olympic story is one of the most emotional from that games because of the ankle injury in
Yeah.
warm-ups. What do you remember about that moment, and how quickly did you realize everything had changed and what was going to happen after that moment?
Oh man, it was that whole games was really, individually very stressful for me. Before I actually left for China, I actually tore my meniscus. And so we were at the training center and I hurt my knee really badly on vault and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my coach because especially in that moment, you're like, you don't really feel pain. You're just
Yeah,
everything hurts all the time and you're like,
yeah.
it's fine. I'm just gonna keep going and
Mhm.
hope that tomorrow it's gonna be feel better. And
Yeah.
so that was really my mindset. And the next day I woke up and my knee was so swollen I couldn't walk on it. And this was after I was named to the Olympic team. And so I just started crying and they took me to get an x-ray and I was like, wow, I just made the Olympic team and I'm not going to be able to go. And the doctor came in and was like, hey, good news and bad news. Like good news is you tore your meniscus and like you can keep going if you want to, but the bad news is it's going to be really painful. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't care. It's fine. And
You're
so
like,
yeah, the rule was like once we touched down in China, I was gonna have to do all my skills like as if I wasn't hurt.
mhm.
And assuming that I could do that, they wouldn't send me home. And so like every second was like, what can I do to get the swelling down on my knee so that I can run normally and like do my skills and punch like I normally do. And so it was just this like really stressful
Yeah.
2 weeks for me. But then, the day before the prelim day, it was like the best that I'd ever felt. I felt back to normal. Like everything was great. I had the warm up of my life. I was crushing beam. And so our last warm up event on floor, last skill to warm up, I did a 2.5 and just like totally landed sideways on my ankle, something I'd obviously never done before. And Alicia heard it pop. And so yeah, I couldn't walk on it. So they gave me a cortisone shot, but like you need a certain amount of minutes for the cortisone shot to even like kick in before
Yeah.
you can do it. So floor was our first event. So they were like, we have to pull you.
Yeah.
And so I begged to do vault. I was like, I can do vault. Please let me do vault. And I just remember Marta saying, like, listen, we need you to hit a bar routine. Like
Yeah.
that's what we need from you right now. Like, can you hit your bar routine? And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, no, I got you. I'll hit
Yeah.
my bar routine. And she's like, okay, like, and then after that, you can decide whether or not you want to do beam or not. So
Mhm.
I said, okay. And then I did bars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just remember like going into like cheerleader mode of like, I felt like I let my team down, my country down, myself down. Like, of course, I didn't do it on purpose, but it just felt like the worst timing possible of something like that to happen, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's tough because you have worked your entire life to get to this point, and
Yeah.
then, things that are out of your control happen. I mean, I know that probably as a gymnast, you do blame yourself when things like that happen, but like anything can happen to any gymnast at any time. It's not your
Yeah.
fault. And so that would be really tough to navigate, I would imagine, especially at a young age.
Oh, yeah.
But I am curious how you landed your dismount off bars with your ankle. I mean, and your torn meniscus and everything that you had going with you. Like, how did you land that dismount?
Willpower. I
Yeah,
mean, nothing was gonna like stop me from making
yeah,
that bar routine,
yeah,
like and what people don't realize, and I actually try to say this on the broadcast if somebody has like their ankle tape or they just got hurt, it's like this swelling. on your one side completely throws off your balance on bars and your weight distribution for your pirouettes. And
Mm.
so you got one warm-up turn. Actually, I don't, do you get a warm-up turn at the Olympics? I don't know if I even got a,
Well, you do now. I don't know
you
if
do now.
I don't
I
know
don't
if
know.
then.
So I either got a 30-second touch or nothing.
Mhm.
And it was just like, okay, like I'm gonna do the best that I can. But my ankle, or I'm sorry, my ankle was so swollen on my one side, and I had so much tape that like the weight distribution was so weird. And I just remember being like, please hang on to the bar,
Yeah.
please hang on to the bar. And please let go when you need to. And then when you land, it's like, who care? I didn't even care about pain or
Yeah.
anything. It was just like, I just need to land on my feet. And I
Yeah.
did. And so I just remember feeling like very, very, very relieved after that bar routine because, mentally going from competing everything to not, this is your dream and you can't do it, but you still have to kind of do it. And so
Yeah.
it was just this like mental roller coaster throughout the whole day.
Yeah. So did you make the choice afterwards to not do beam? Was that your choice after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was warming up beam on the floor and I couldn't push through my toes. Like it was so my ankle was so swollen and I was gonna be not last in the lineup and I didn't wanna if I had any mistake, I didn't wanna mess up anyone behind me and I just felt like it was the best decision for the team for
Yeah.
me not to do beam at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. I mean, that really is. But I mean, the thing is, and I talked to Chelsea Memo the other day and about like she obviously was dealing with injury during that time too, and
Yep.
things like that. And so my heart goes out to you all because that has to be tough to be at the point where you worked so hard for your entire life to get there, to get injured, and then to know like the pain that y'all were pushing through, like.
Yeah.
Wow, what badasses you all are.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
truly. I
Thank
hope you know
you.
that. Really.
I mean, each year that goes by, you look back and, my fiance was not in the gymnastics world
Hmm.
at all. And so things come up and he's like, that's not normal. And I'm like, the further away I get from it, like certain things, that come up about my training and childhood and competing and the pressure, it's like, it's just a weird world that
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have gotten the opportunity to be part of.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny, when I talk to other people about their childhoods and it's slightly different.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They're not working through torn meniscus and ankle
No,
injuries on the world stage,
no,
as
no.
teenagers and young adults. So, well, you came back in 2009 and you were still producing strong results. What do you
Mhm.
remember about that comeback chapter physically and emotionally?
It was hard. My coach that I'd been with for so long, we had such a great relationship and good rapport. He knew how to coach me and how to motivate me. The year before the Olympics, his brother-in-law passed away, and it's in Chinese culture, it's customary for you to take over the family business. And so he actually was supposed to leave a year before the Olympics, but went against the grain and told his family that he gave me and my family a commitment that he would stay through the Olympics, whether or not I made it or not. And so I had known that whole year that after the Olympics, he was moving to China.
Hmm.
And so, I had to figure out a different coach and I had to figure out, it probably would have been gymnasticsly smarter for me to move to Iowa and train with Sean because her coach and my coach had very similar ways of doing things.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to leave my high school and I was just kind of in like a weird rut coming back and like living this double life of going to school and taking tests, but then like we got to go to the White House and then
Yeah.
I got to go on tour and then Bridget and I would do the Harlem Globetrotters
Yeah.
and like so we were getting the weirdest like am I this, rock star life
Yeah.
girl or am I just like a normal student? And the reality
Yeah.
was like I was both, but
Yeah.
like I was having this identity crisis of like who I really was and like also feeling guilty and like part of me that like didn't deserve all of that because I wasn't able to do what I wanted to
Hmm.
in Beijing individually. And so it was like this weird and on top of that, we all remember being like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And it's just like on top of that, I was just a teenage girl who
It's
was
tough.
like going through puberty and having crushes on boys. And
Yeah.
like it was just, it was like it was a hard transition, I think,
Yeah.
after the Olympics. You would think like coming back from the Olympics, you would have so much confidence and so much like lightness because your dream came true, but it was almost like everything had so much more pressure after that and the expectation was higher. And so I really had to go like dig deep and figure out like, okay, who am I? And like what do I want to do? Do I want to keep doing gymnastics? And like what's the future for me look like?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. That has to be
Yeah.
tough, like losing your coach and then like continuing on and having to deal with making changes and all of that. That's really difficult. But then you went to UCLA,
Yeah.
which ended up being an iconic, I mean, just from a viewer's perspective, an iconic experience for you.
Yeah.
But why was UCLA the right fit for you?
You know, man, I went to a few visits and there was a few schools I was considering, and it was the really tough choice.
Mhm.
It was such a tough choice because I had friends at all these schools. I enjoyed the coaches. I liked the schools. And so for me, looking at UCLA, I loved that. First of all, I loved the weather.
Yeah.
But I was mostly considering warm places. So that was kind of like, non-negotiable for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, but the academics were so strong, and I kind of looked at all the gymnasts that were on teams and saw what they were doing in their careers now,
Mhm.
and they all seemed like they were really happy and fulfilled and like doing cool stuff outside of the gymnastics world.
Yeah.
The irony is that I went to UCLA and I'm still in the gymnastics world, but I
Yeah.
would say that I am enjoying it, so it probably still fits the bill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really wanted that experience of, living in LA and working with Miss Val and really having that experience of the transition out of gymnastics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm a UCLA fan. I love UCLA. I have been for forever. So I remember watching you. I'm 35, so
Okay.
I like have watched UCLA for a long time. And I remember you and your standing back fulls and all of the iconic things that you did.
Yeah.
It was an awesome era. Like looking back. How did college gymnastics heal or reshape your relationship with the sport after everything you went through in elite?
Yeah. I mean, I think Miss Val had the biggest hand in all of that.
Hmm.
Um, I remember, and Chris Waller too. He was so impactful to my career. I remember my freshman year going there and I was working on something, and he was like, "Oh, that was really good." And then I started crying
Oh.
randomly, which I'm not. I've told two stories where I cried, and I don't think I'm a huge crier. But
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I know it wasn't very good, and like, you told me it was good." And he was like, "Sam," and so we had to have this like conversation on like what does working together look like, and like I wanted to still hold my expectations and standard to that elite level even though I was competing in college. And I also think we were kind of brainwashed in elite to think that college was a step down
Mm,
and kind of, the easy way out, and all of the comments that people used to say about college gymnastics. I think things have changed
yeah,
drastically where it's
for
not
sure.
like that anymore. But I had this like nervousness that going to college, I just wasn't going to like be as good as I once was. And so I think meetings with Val and Chris of just like what does excellence look like in this space and how can I get there? And so it was important for me to have balance and friends outside of gymnastics and to do well in school and to have a social life. And so for me, like I had to redefine what success looked like.
Yeah.
And of course, in the gym, I wanted that expectation and I wanted to win and I wanted our team to do well. And so, but it was a little bit more about compartmentalizing, whereas at Elite, it was like my entire world from the moment I woke up to the time I went to bed was like, how can I be the best gymnast that I can be? And in college, it was that mindset shift of like, how can I be the best all around person that I can be? And what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's huge. And I think that you really set the tone for and inspired a lot of athletes to go to college after elite. You really were like one of the first that did that, and you kind of led the way for that. So, I think that's incredible that you did that because you showed that there is longevity in the sport, there is life after elite, there is gymnastics after elite. So I think what you did was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It
Yeah.
is tough to, you're taught this for so many years. Like I made the national team when I was 12 and
Yeah.
you're told like, hey, you can't smile too much and you can't cry. Like you have to have stoic emotions.
Yeah.
And then in college, you're like, no, we want you to celebrate and we want
Yeah.
you like we don't want you to be this intense. And so it's like unlearning a lot of the um mechanics, the mental mechanics of
Yeah.
what you've been taught for so long. I
Yeah.
think I thought that college gymnastics would be super easy, and there was parts that maybe the skills were easy for me, but there were so many parts of college that were so tough
Yeah.
in terms of just like managing your life and also like figuring out how to be perfect on all the details without the difficulty of the skills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And your freshman year at UCLA started with a foot fracture,
Yeah.
before you even really got going. So, what do
Yeah.
you remember about that setback and that frustration of having to wait again?
Yeah, it was just like the here we go again. Like
Yeah.
right before I was getting ready to compete, it had been a long time since I'd competed. And that's really my favorite part about gymnastics. And
Yeah.
so having to like, take a couple years basically off of competing and just heal my body. And then the way that I fractured it was I was walking and I just tripped and I fell. And
Oh my God.
on the walk back from a vault. And so it was just this like frustrating thing of like, why can't I stay healthy? And like, why is this so tough for me right now? And so I think that like frustration was like at an all-time high.
Yeah.
But also like being able to watch instead of competing right away, I think did help me when I was eventually allowed to compete again because I kind of like knew what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense actually. Well, and
Yeah.
then in your collegiate debut, you came out and scored a 9.9 on bars. What did that first meet mean to you after the delayed start?
I think it was like I'm back and I can do
Yeah.
this was
Yeah.
like part of me, but then the other part of me was like this expectation that I should be scoring a 10-0 every time I
Oh.
competed. And so it was like I had this really unrealistic expectation for myself that I actually think a lot of elites um feel when they get to college because you take so much difficulty out in your head. It's like, I should do everything perfect every time. And
Hmm.
that's not the case. And so it
Yeah.
was like figuring out how to celebrate something. Like to me, getting that was a disappointment. Like
Oh,
I was
wow.
upset that I got a 9.9.
Yeah.
It should have been higher and I should have done better.
Mhm.
And so it was like the first couple of years of college was like really that mindset shift of like, how can I celebrate this and keep improving and like have fun with the sport? And then, the irony is like the last year winning nationals and like
Yeah.
figuring it out and kind of
Yeah.
having that storybook ending. But I would say like a lot of elites come to college now and like crush it. I'm like, you guys are awesome because I definitely needed a learning curve to understand like I think the mentality that was different about college gymnastics.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. But to hear that breaks my heart to hear that you think that you thought a 9.9 was like not good enough.
Oh
9.9 is an amazing score. And
yeah.
it's, especially back then, like there weren't a lot of like high scores, and
Yeah.
there weren't very many like 10-0s back then. So to hear that you were like putting so much pressure on yourself, like when we saw you, we thought you were amazing and we were so proud of you. So to know that you were like putting so much pressure, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think me and Miss Val had lots of conversations and I was like, no, it's unacceptable. And she's like, okay, we gotta figure out a way in which that, you can continue to strive to be better, but also be proud of what you've been doing and what you
Uh-huh.
are doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was, I think, coming up in that elite system of like what did you learn and what did you learn through that?
Yeah.
It was that mentality that like even greatness, unless it's perfect, is not good enough.
Yeah.
And so I think again that like mental shift of like, okay, right, we
Yeah.
can keep getting better, but we also can be like, let's pat ourselves on the back along the way.
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time like unlearning that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds, I mean, like it would be really difficult to navigate for
Yeah.
sure. But then in 2011, you won the NCAA beam title and became the first collegiate gymnast to compete a standing full on beam, which we talked about earlier. What do you remember about that routine and about taking a risk like that in NCAA?
It didn't feel like a risk because
Yeah,
I had competed I'd competed for like 10 years,
yeah,
And so for me, it's like maybe I didn't compete it in college, but I was used to competing on podium and
yeah.
I loved beam. And yeah, I mean, it was the event final, the glory days. And
Hmm.
so, again, like it was like my expectation that if I was going to do a full and make it, like I should win. So
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I don't have too many memories other than like I'm so happy from the year that started as me hurting my foot to come back and win beam, which was an event that, I almost quit gymnastics because of so many fears on balance beam. So the fact that I was getting my groove on beam, I think really made me proud when I took a step back and thought about how much work that I did on that event in particular.
yeah, yeah. And then, I mean, I feel like you became known for Beam, like you and we're gonna talk about
Mhm.
Beam Queen, but
Yeah.
you became known for Beam. And so I think it's so interesting the journey and the trajectory that it took to like get to that point. But I know that you had a torn Achilles at one point, and then you did Achilles rehab. You came back in 2014. You scored a perfect 10 on bars.
Yeah.
Did that moment feel like validation after the long road back?
Yeah, it did. I think bars was an event that I always struggled on. And like the funny thing about bars is even in elite, I wasn't nervous for bars
Hmm.
because I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to make it and my score was just going to be okay every time. So didn't have the most amount of difficulty, but in order to stay in the game in terms of the all around, like I needed to just hit my bar routine and it was relatively easy for me to do that. And so like this event that was always just kind of pushed to the side. Like I was never going to be chosen for a team because of my bars. And
Hmm.
so for like an event that I just kind of had written off
Hmm.
in my brain for it to be my first and only perfect 10 in college, like
Yeah.
the irony of that and like the cool factor for me of like on my worst event, I got a perfect 10.
Hmm.
That's definitely something that's still special for me that like, and ironic, I think, of all the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredible. And then your fifth year in 2015 was absolutely incredible. I mean, what felt different about that season compared to the earlier versions of yourself?
I think I didn't have as much expectation that like I wasn't weighted down by that expectation and it was more of just like I understood college gymnastics. I was kind of doing a victory lap. I wasn't even supposed to get that fifth year, but because I got injured, I did. And so it was like, okay, how can I just have fun with all of this and
Yeah.
try to enjoy it? And so I wish our team had a little bit more success that year. That would have made it more special, I think, for me personally. But yeah, I mean, gosh, to finish with the title in the all around and on beam. I mean, that to me was like the storybook ending to like my gymnastics career. Like I couldn't have written it better and it makes all the hard moments worth it. And I just remember like before I saluted for my beam routine, it was like the most nerve-wracking, like the most nervous that I'd ever been for a beam routine ever in my
Oh,
entire
wow.
life. Like
Yeah.
I was shaking, like it was the weirdest thing. And Miss Val was like, "Are you sure you should do your full? Like, I think you should not do it. I really think you shouldn't do it."
Hmm.
Because I fell on more than I made in the warm
Yeah.
up, and I
Yeah.
was like, if I fall, like at least I know that I like gave it my all, and I'm just gonna do every skill that I can think of.
Hmm.
And until they kick me off beam, I was like, I'll do a front tuck, I'll do this, all these skills I haven't done in forever. And she was like, "Oh God." So I think she was also like I know how bad Sam wants this, and I hope that she just like doesn't let the moment get too big. And
Yeah.
so I think me making that full was like such a willpower make. Like
Yeah.
I still remember being so nervous and then like I wobbled on or I was about to wobble on a little dance thing and I was like,
Mhm.
I just got to get off the beam, I
Yeah.
got to get
Yeah.
off the beam. And so yeah, I mean that was definitely like a career highlight for me to be able to like handle the pressure of that moment in particular.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, You finished with 17 All-American honors and three NCAA titles. Like that is pretty incredible. When
Thank
you
you.
hear that now, what part of your college legacy means the most to you?
I hope that I was a good leader when I was on the team, and I hope that I was a good teammate.
Hmm.
And I hope I set the tone of like, hey, you can excel in the classroom and also in the gym and
Yep.
also have a social life. And like, I hope that like those moments and those things and like what I'm doing now inspires the gymnasts on the team now to
Hmm.
do whatever they want to do and accomplish those goals. In terms of like the gymnastics legacy, like that's for other people to decide.
Hmm.
I think that I tried my best every day in the gym, and it's like those things that you can't see
Yeah.
that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you were known academically, you were known in the gym, and those are two really difficult things to balance. So
Yeah,
that is very impressive.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, and then after retirement, you moved into media pretty quickly.
Yep.
First with UCLA Pac-12 work, and later with ESPN and SEC Network. What drew you to broadcasting in the first place?
The year that I tore my Achilles, I remember thinking about like, okay, how am I gonna like make this year count for myself? And what do I want to do life after gymnastics? And I'd always kind of thought about broadcasting because I was really comfortable doing interviews. My mom used to like practice with me growing up in terms of like people asking me questions where I always felt comfortable. And I love sports. I'm still so inspired by different sports. And so that was kind of like the start of it, is wanting to like be a host of a talk show, of a sports talk show.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I after college like flew up to the Pac-12 networks and asked for a meeting, and like I had this like 20 slide like deck prepared on why I would be a good candidate and like some changes that I felt like could help the broadcast. And I was like one slide in and she was like, "Yeah, no, we needed someone anyway." And I was like, "Okay, so I got the job." She was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you want to see the rest of my like presentation though?" Like she was like, "I mean, I guess."
You're like, but I
So
worked hard on
I know.
it.
I was like, okay, sure, I'll take it, I guess,
Yeah, yeah, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you first started commentating, I love your commentary. I think it's
Oh,
very, I think you'd have a good balance of like being kind, but also being knowledgeable. And sometimes that can be well, especially in the past, like in the past, it's been gnarly at times.
yeah.
But for you, I feel like you have this ability to be kind because you know like what these athletes are going through and what they have been through, and while still being knowledgeable about skills and deductions and things like that.
Mm.
What felt natural to you right away, and what was much harder about broadcasting than people might realize?
Oh my God. There's like almost everything is harder than people
Yeah,
realize in
yeah,
broadcasting, honestly. Like every time I see tweets, like I'm not trolling often, but
yeah,
you see things and it's like, what I want to tell everybody is like, you know what you should do? You should watch a YouTube meet and turn the volume off and then record yourself and then just see what it sounds like. And chances are it's just, and not that it's an out because it's it's your job so to be good at that, but there's definitely a learning curve in broadcasting, which is why I always tell people it's actually better to start lower networks, less eyeballs, so you can kind of get your own kinks out. But yeah, I mean, I think you can be comfortable on air. Like I was comfortable speaking on air,
yeah,
but everything else is learned,
yeah.
honestly. Like figuring out the timing and when to say things and how long you have to say things or getting caught in a story or what's relevant in the moment. And so it's like you're constantly juggling so many questions in your head of what to say next. And so yeah, I mean, all I can say, it is much harder than anyone kind of would imagine. I think much harder than I thought it was going to be. In my head, doing broadcasting, it's like, oh, just talking about what I know.
Mhm.
No, there's so many unwritten rules, there's so much lingo, there's so much chemistry involved in it that it's just really it's tougher than people give it credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, truly, I interviewed Ollie Hogbin, who is like
Oh, yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
at commentary. And like he even says like he gets nervous and he has
Yeah.
like his routines that he does. He gets afraid that he's gonna forget every gymnastic skill he ever knew, like before he goes on air. Like,
Yeah.
like they're it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
So when people criticize commentators, I'm like, y'all, this is a hard job. Like
Yeah.
let's realize that.
I think you can criticize commentators.
Well, yeah.
I think that's fine, especially if someone's doing the same mistake over and over. It's like,
Mhm.
but if it's like, all right, everyone gets a grace period or like a
Yeah.
grace mistake on
Yeah.
something. And, I think that's why I enjoy working with John so much is because, you're never, it's kind of similar to like a beam routine in a
Yeah.
way where or a gymnastics meet where it's like, it's never going to be a perfect show.
Yeah.
And if you mess up and then the whole show you're dwelling on it, you're probably going to mess something else up
Yeah.
because you're still beating yourself up.
Yep.
And so I think we do a good job of like making fun of ourselves and like
Yeah.
having fun with it. And like
Yeah.
one of the other shows, I could not say the word in particular.
Uh-huh.
I kept saying in specific, I was trying to say in particular or specifically, and
Uh-huh.
I kept mixing the two, and I tried like three times. And then John goes, "Yeah, then you just committed and said in specifically." And
And
so
specifically.
I didn't even know that I did that until he told
Amazing.
me. And so I'm like, oh my God. But it's like things like that, that it's like, obviously people know that I know it's
Yeah.
in particular, but
Yeah.
every single thing that comes out of your mouth for 2 hours to be heightened and like
Yeah.
criticized is hard sometimes.
Yes, and we're all human beings at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Like I try to point this out so many times on the podcast. I'm like, we're all humans. Like first and foremost, we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
We have mistakes, and to be live on air, we the thing is like in everyday conversation, we make mistakes in the way that we talk to
Yeah.
each other. And so of course it's going to happen on air too, you know? I mean, yeah, I think you're right. You can
Totally.
criticize commentators, but like show some grace as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, as someone who has lived through high pressure elite culture, how do you think the conversation around athlete wellness and safety has changed since your era?
I mean, it's been a 180,
Yeah.
and I don't think I have a pulse on the developmental side of things well enough to speak on it in terms of like how drastically different that is.
Yeah.
Although, from what I hear in the grapevine, it seems like it's extremely different, and the points of emphasis that they're incorporating and making, it seems intentional and positive. So, I like what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
But I'm not there to see it firsthand and experience it firsthand. But from the stories they're sharing versus the stories that we all shared, it sounds like there's been a culture shift, which I think was really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've built things outside of traditional broadcasting, especially that helps with this culture shift,
Yeah.
like Beam Queen. What do you enjoy most about creating your own space in gymnastics, media, and mentorship?
I started it as like a way to give back to the next generation from what it felt like I took years to learn on my own.
Hmm.
And that's really the whole start of it. And since then, the feedback we've gotten from parents and just athletes over time and seeing them year after year. And at the end of the summer, we'll have been to 49 states, and it's incredible. I never would have imagined it to grow the way that it has, but I think that parents really appreciate the confidence training that we're doing, and it makes it a little bit unique, which I mean, as somebody that wasn't good at beam and then became good at beam, that's the missing component. Of course you have to work hard and you do have to do the technique, but like the difference between being good or decent on beam and great every time
Hmm.
is the mental aspect. And
Yeah.
of course that translates to the other events. It translates to life out of gymnastics. And
Yeah.
I think it's really important to teach athletes and gymnasts how to coach themselves mentally on their own so that as they develop and as they grow up, whether they stay in the sport or move on, I think that they're going to remember those moments, hopefully at Beam Queen, that they remembered how to be confident
Yeah.
and what they need to ask themselves. I always tell our staff, like, hey, listen, like, we're not curing cancer, but I want you to act like the gymnast you're coaching is going to be the girl that cures cancer one day.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the importance of what I feel like we're doing is hopefully giving them the tools and resources that they can carry with them in their life outside of gymnastics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so important. What
Mm.
has Beam Queen Bootcamp taught you about the next generation of gymnasts and what they need most from adults in the sport?
That's a good question. I think that there was a really big culture shift after everything that happened in the sport, and the pendulum swung the other way as it should have. And
Mhm.
I actually think what gymnasts value is strictness and discipline
Mhm.
and higher expectations. I think that a lot of athletes come in and coaches for good reason are afraid to discipline athletes and
Mhm.
hold high standards. And while there's certainly a right way and a wrong way to do that,
Yeah.
I have found that when I'm in there and I'm coaching girls and I'm telling straight back knee, hey guys, stop, look at me. I need you guys can all do it. Let's do that. And you
Yeah.
hold them to a high standard and then they do it. That sort of reward and that responsibility you have as their coach
Mhm.
to help them understand what their potential is and
Mhm.
to hold them to that high standard and for them to realize how much higher their potential is.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I'm noticing a trend in the athletes we coach of what they appreciate
Mhm.
coming to Beam Queen and also like that sort of high expectation that we hope they bring when they come.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because there is a difference in discipline and like cruelty.
Oh yeah.
There's a
And
big difference there.
yeah, and we're absolutely like, there's no room for that at Beam Queen with any of the
Yeah.
staff, and they know that. But I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, please don't be afraid to coach them. They're coming here for good technique. Like, say good job if it was a good job, but also
Yeah.
every single time they do a turn, give them a correction. It's
Yeah.
it's like at least growing up in the sport, I think one of the positive parts about the system that I did grow up in is that, it was a sign of respect that someone was giving you a correction when you went every time. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, guys, it's respectful to these athletes who are, working their butts off to be here and to give them that correction so that they have the opportunity to fix it next time.
Yeah.
Because as you know, and anyone listening to this podcast, like the world of gymnastics, the gymnasts that are wanting to do this sport are those type A
Yeah.
girls that hold themselves to a high standard and they want to keep improving. And so it's an honor for us to be able to coach them and hopefully they feel like it's a cool opportunity for them to receive those corrections from Olympians and NCAA champions and NCAA coaches. And I know when I was their age, that's all I wanted is to go to a camp and have them hold me to a really high standard so that I could take what I learned back to my club gym.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. Well, we've talked a lot of gym, which I love. I could talk gym forever. I'm a gym nerd. I love it. But I also want to get to
Yeah.
know you as a person because
Okay.
that is one reason why I created this podcast is because athletes and commentators and all of you are human beings first and foremost, like I said. So outside of work, what does a genuinely restful, happy day look like for you?
Hmm. Probably like wake up, go on a walk,
Mm-hmm.
and or a workout, and
Mm-hmm.
then go on the boat. My
Oh.
fiance and I grew up going on the boat, and like during summer when I would have 2 days at the gym, going on the boat was like my heaven
Mm-hmm.
and just like felt like vacation every time I was on the boat. And so
Yeah.
now that I live in a place where you can boat like 9 months out of the year,
Mm-hmm.
we love to go on the boat when we're in town. And it's like it's that same feeling of like I don't know, there's something about the boat where I can compartmentalize and like nothing else matters other
Yeah.
than being on the boat with my fiance or our friends. And so yeah, just going on the boat and then probably having some like Mexican food and a
Oh,
margarita or something.
love that. I'm from
Yeah.
Texas. So
Oh, okay.
I'm
Great.
from Texas, so I love Mexican food and I love
Yeah.
going on boats.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I can
Well,
relate to that.
great. Great. Next time you're in Austin, you'll have to join us.
I moved, so I live in Nashville, but I moved here from Austin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
I love
such a
Austin.
great spot. I
Yeah,
know.
Nashville's great. Nashville reminds me of Austin to some degree. Like it's kind of
Okay.
like a little bit similar, like
Yeah.
different, but it's a little similar as well. But I miss Austin. Austin's a great
Oh,
city.
yeah. But I guess that would probably be my like, checkout day.
I love that. I love that. Are you someone who loves self-care routines or is your version of self-care more low-key and simple?
I really say I would love to be one of those girls that has like the 50-step routine and like I
Mhm,
think I have a few steps before I go to
mhm,
bed, but
mhm,
like I'm definitely more on the simple side.
mhm.
I would say like if you were to write down like what's your version of self-care, it'd be like going on a walk and calling a friend.
Aw,
Um,
yeah.
that would be like if I had like one thing and I'm like I'm really in a rut, what can I do?
Mhm.
Like going on a walk outside and calling a friend
Yeah,
or my
I love
mom
that.
or my dad or my
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, yeah. Are you are you a FaceTime girl or just like classic phone call?
I used to be a FaceTime girl, and I
Mhm.
think I've turned to a call because I do more calls on walks now.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like it's I don't want to hold
Put
the
the
phone.
AirPods in or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you just like walk around. Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah. What does taking care of yourself now look like compared to when you were an elite gymnast?
Oh my gosh. It's very different.
Hmm.
I think in elite, like, I think everyone wakes up, whether they know it or not, everyone wakes up with an agenda
Hmm.
and of who they want to be that day. And,
Hmm.
for so many years training elite, like I would wake up and the agenda was, how can I be the best gymnast that I can be? How can I get better in gymnastics
Hmm.
today?
Hmm.
And even when I was at school, it was like, what fuel do I need to eat for lunch to be the best gymnast? Like that was how I was programmed,
Hmm.
is to just be the best. And so I think going to college and kind of unlearning some of that of like, hey, how can I be a more well-rounded
Yeah.
person in life outside of gymnastics? I think there's aspects that I do a good job of and points that my fiance so nicely points out to me that like I could probably, give myself more grace in
Yeah.
certain areas and like not be, he's like, you don't have to do everything like 0 to 100. Like you can do things at like an 8 speed. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I just don't, I'm not really wired that way. It's like if I'm gonna do something, it's like I have to dedicate all of my energy and time to it. And so I think there's aspects that I'm still like kind of trying to incorporate and dial it back a
Hmm.
few degrees.
Hmm.
But on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, I'm so passionate about the jobs that I have, my relationships and friendships, and I think that does make me a little bit me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that figuring out balance now when I wake up, it's like, how can I have balance today?
Hmm.
What does my life look like? Like, how can I get my responsibilities done, but also have balance?
Yeah.
And so, Shayla Worley, speaking of her, she actually lives in Austin. We're still,
Hmm.
best friends, and we're wired very similarly, probably, a product of our environment growing up,
Yeah.
our personalities. But, her and I are constantly checking in with each other of like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I think it's very easy for our personality types to be workaholics, and it's at this stage in our life, like, how can we make space to enjoy what we've built for ourselves?
Hmm.
And that's still like the constant question that I have when I wake up is like, hey, how can I get my responsibilities done, but also have more balance? And yeah, that's something that I think that I'm probably still, that's an active question that I'm working on.
Yeah, yeah, but you're working on it. That's the important part, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not it's success is not linear, right?
Yeah.
And it I can only imagine like how growing up the way that you grew up would wire your brain a certain way that it would take a long time to kind of like
Yeah.
rewire it and figure out different ways to find that balance, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have like a fire that I think is pretty unique and
Mhm.
I could work. I mean, I think also I really enjoy what I do and I could
Yeah,
work all the time. Like
yeah,
I could really work all the time. It's not that I
yeah.
don't love hanging out or doing other things, but I do enjoy what I do and the people that I get to work with. And so, I'm blessed in that way, but it's also like, okay, we got to make sure that we're also finding space for the other things in life that bring us joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And
Yeah.
I honestly I feel like that that is the key, is finding things that bring you joy,
Mhm.
because outside of gymnastics, outside of that, because that dominated your world for so long, so that's really cool that you're working on finding that balance. Okay,
Yeah.
are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you take your coffee?
If it's a hot coffee, it's an Americano, and if it's a
Okay,
cold coffee, it's just a cold brew, both
okay,
black. I have
yeah,
like the least fun coffee order, the least high maintenance coffee drinker of all
yeah.
time.
You're just like, I just need the energy.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
just enjoy, actually just like the taste of like
just
very
like,
strong coffee.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a
yeah.
taste for me. I actually wish the caffeine could be dialed back. I just told
Oh, okay.
my fiance man, I'm like, we got to get some decaf coffee because I love the taste of it, but like sometimes I don't need the like to be amped to like
Yeah.
100,
Yeah,
you
that
know?
makes sense. That makes sense. I get it. So we've arrived to the final questions. These are the
Okay.
questions I ask every guest. It kind of shows like how you're alike, how you're different. But what in the gym, there's a lot of sounds going on. What is a gym sound or noise that you love that's like ASMR to you?
I think like the like when you land like a back tuck on beam,
Oh yeah,
like the
yeah.
like ding. I
Mhm, mhm.
don't
Yeah,
know
that's a
how
good
to
one.
say it, but like
No, that's
probably
great.
that.
That's great. What is a gym sound or noise that you don't like, that you hate, that's like when you hear it, it very much annoys you?
Oh, I'm like I just got the chills thinking about it. Like when people scrape the bar,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
nails on a chalkboard.
Yep. Okay, what brings you to life creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I think intellectually stimulating conversations
Yeah.
about, new ideas and whether they're in the gymnastics world or not, or just
Mhm.
like, I don't know, talking about the future of our world and
Yeah.
things like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
anything that I find like that's why I enjoy doing podcasts and, meeting new people a lot because I feel like there's always something that you can learn from somebody.
Yeah.
And even if you learn something from yourself by a question that they asked you. And so,
Yeah.
I enjoy doing stuff like this because I just really like thoughtful, intellectually stimulating conversations
I
and
do too.
and I think that, keeps me going. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I do too. I'm the same. Okay, if you could steal and replicate a skill a skill a gymnast does really well, what would it be?
Mm,
It's hard. There's so many good ones out there.
can I say routine?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so my idol on Beam, and I think she was the person that when I first saw her do beam, she was like my inspiration
Hmm.
to become good at beam.
Hmm.
'Cause I never felt like I really was. And then I watched her work beam and it like blew my mind. And it was like this moment that like I can do this.
Hmm.
Catalina Ponar
Yeah, yeah.
on Beam. I
Beam
think
queen.
in my head, you had to be this like flexible artistic gymnast on Beam.
Hmm.
And I watched her train Beam, I think at that World Championships,
Hmm.
I think is where I first saw her like in person train Beam. And
Hmm.
the way she was aggressive and attacking Beam, like it was just this unlock of my strengths can be successful on this event. And I
Yeah,
don't know why that didn't happen before that moment,
yeah,
but I just started stalking her online and watching every single beam routine I could find of hers and just the way that she was so confident and landed with such conviction and like was such a badass on beam. I would always like try to channel her
yeah.
when
Hmm.
I got into the gym. And so anyway, I think doing her routine and she had a flexible back too. So she had
Yeah,
like the total package of like the most beautiful but difficult beam routine
yeah.
ever.
No, she was a beam queen for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Okay, if you were reincarnated as an animal, what animal would you be?
Maybe a dolphin because
A dolphin?
aren't they the most social? I don't know. I
Yeah,
really don't like water though. I really that maybe that's not right.
but you like the boat,
I like being on water, not
not
in. You're
in
right.
it.
That
Okay,
is confusing, but there's a strong distinction. I like
okay,
being on the water, not in the water.
gotcha. There is a difference. There's a difference. I
Yeah.
get it.
I don't know. I think actually a dog.
A
Like
dog?
it feels like a boring answer, but that was the first thing that
No.
I thought of. And like they're kind of part of the family and like
Mm-hmm.
they're just so happy to see everybody. They're social, like they like walks outside too.
Mm-hmm. They're smart. You're smart. Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah. No, I
Love
mean,
them.
my husband's a dog trainer, so we take
Okay,
dogs very
great.
seriously in this house.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so I'll go with dog.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Looking back, and this is the last question, I always say I think it's an important one, but looking back, what would little Sam be most proud of right now?
Oh my gosh, that is a great question to end on. It's like it's so weird because I feel like I have a bad memory, but I have such vivid memories of like myself as a little kid gymnast, just like having the biggest dreams
Hmm.
of doing all this stuff. And I think when you're a little kid and you want to be an astronaut or you want to do all these crazy things, you have no idea the like step-by-step process it would take to actually do it.
Right.
And so I think, looking back, like little me would just be so proud that I figured out a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Um, a couple Thanksgivings ago, I was with my family and something came up about the Olympics, and my mom was like, "Isn't that so weird that you ended up going to the Olympics after all that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like it just I think, I didn't come from like that gymnastics pedigree of a family, and I didn't go to the like chosen gym that you're supposed to go to, and like I went to a real school, and like I think I had the odds stacked against me,
Mhm.
in some way. I didn't know that at the time, but looking
Yeah.
back, like it's like everything had to go right in order for me to make that Olympic team. And although it didn't go perfectly, it's like that dream of making the team and being part of something like so much bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to do that when I was a little kid, but like it was more rewarding and special
Yeah.
than I think I could have ever imagined. And just the sport of gymnastics in general. Like I loved it from a little kid, and I credit my parents and my coaches for like not making me hate it during the really difficult times, for me to
Yeah.
still want to be involved and
Yeah.
still feel like it's a special sport that I have a lot to give and I have a lot of ideas for how to make it better. And yeah, it's who knew, I wanted to get out of the sport of gymnastics in college, and then like who knew that I was gonna feel so fulfilled and rewarded by the career paths that I've chosen and the people that I get to work with on a daily basis. So you know, I do work a lot. I
Yeah.
work a lot. But like, I have these pinch me moments of like, being so proud of the work that I've done and feeling that fulfillment that I think a lot of people maybe don't ever feel in their work life. And so that brings me a lot of pride to know that, I was able to do that in the sport and that I'm still kind of continuing that little 5-year-old's dream of staying in the sport of gymnastics for as long as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And I always say it's so important to make our young selves proud. I say this in every episode, but like kids are so smart and they like know what they want. And I'm like, if I look back and think like little Joy would want to be my friend and look up to me, then
Aw.
I've done something right, you know? Like that's how I feel. So I think that that's great that you feel the same way. But thank you so much for coming on my
Aw.
podcast, Sam.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. This is
Yeah.
this is so fun. I appreciate it. You had great questions.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
talking to you. I was really looking forward to this. You're someone who I really am, I admire your work ethic. Truly, you are someone to be inspired by. Your work, like I said, like your work ethic really inspires me. Your dedication to everything that you do, like you do 100%. And I think that's very clear. I don't even know you as a person, but I think that's very clear that that is how you operate. And that's very inspiring. And just to see another woman, like I believe in women supporting women, and just to see another woman like so successful at what she does, like again, really inspiring. So keep going because what you're doing is amazing. And thank you for all you're doing for the sport of gymnastics.
Oh, thank you so much. That means more than you know. And such nice warm fuzzies to end on. So thank you very much.
Of course. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
bye.
Bye.
Something, something, you know what?